We have a Chinese foreign aircraft penetrating our airspace. My immediate response is we shoot the damn thing down. But what if they just didn't tell Joe Biden for several days that this was even here because they didn't trust his ability to make a decent decision? We've got Chinese spy balloons all over the world, and I saw something that I thought was pretty strange last night on CBS News. CBS came out and said that we had seen the spy balloon from the moment it took off in China, and that we had been tracking it all the way for a week until it reached Alaska. This is, I think, an important revelation, assuming it's true. Always have to throw that caveat in there. Assuming this report is accurate, I want you to listen to it, and then I think we need to dissect some of the implications that come out of this statement. Listen.
CBS News has just learned that U.S. intelligence watched the high-flying airship as it lifted off near China's south coast. That means the U.S. military had been tracking it for nearly a week before it entered U.S. airspace, longer than originally known.
What they saw was this balloon heading east from China towards Guam and Hawaii, but then it took a sharp northward turn, a beeline towards Alaska. They also revealed today that the 3 subsequent objects they shot down probably were not involved in spying.
So all of that's kind of an important report. But let's start here. According to the CBS report, American intelligence had been, quote, tracking this Chinese spy balloon for nearly a week. Now, if that sounds strange to you, it certainly sounds very strange to me. And Senator Josh Hawley, who we may have on later this week, when I shared this clip on social media, reacted as well and said something that I think is very important and certainly is one of the implications that comes out of this. Senator Hawley tweeted, he didn't shoot it down. Well, so I asked the question. Let me start with the question that I immediately asked. So when I hear that we've been tracking this Chinese spy balloon for nearly a week, that means when it entered into United States airspace, I believe it is 12 miles off the coast of the United States or any other sovereign nation, that's considered to be our airspace. And that makes some sense, right? If you think about it, I looked it up because I was curious. How far off the coast is it considered to still be the United States, for instance, as opposed to international waters? The answer is, in general, about 12 miles off the coast of a mainland is when we enter into international waters. If you're out there listening to me right now, and you are, let's say, perhaps 18 years old, and you have ever been on a cruise ship, and you might have noticed, hey, I can gamble and I can drink on this cruise ship, only takes 12 miles off the coast, you hit international waters, boom, you can drink and you can gamble. A lot of you out there right now, like, man, I wish I'd known that on spring break. Yeah, you get on a cruise. You don't even have to break out the fake ID. You can walk into the casino. You can drink international waters 12 miles off the coast of a country, has its own law. Okay, so that's fascinating. But if we have been tracking this for nearly a week, how is it that we didn't shoot down this Chinese spy balloon as soon as it entered either our territorial waters, right, 12 miles off the coast, and certainly as soon as it entered into Alaska? Now, we were told early on something that I think is a lie, and I think it's been proven a lie based on the way things have gone of late. Remember, what was the initial response from the Biden administration when people like me came on this radio program and said, shoot the damn thing down? Remember, I told you that if I was governor of a state, I would have shot it down. Again, remember last hour I was saying, like, my kind of rule for life is just be normal? I think for most people, If a Chinese spy balloon is in your jurisdiction, your response would be, well, that violates our national sovereignty. Let's shoot it down. I think that's like 75, 80% of Americans would have that natural reaction. So I would have shot it down. But the Biden administration said, well, we were concerned about what might happen to others if we shot down the balloon. Well, that totally has gotten thrown out the window because we just found out on, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, that one of the objects that we shot down over Lake Huron up in northern Michigan, the first missile missed. I don't think this is getting enough attention right now. The first missile we fired from a fighter jet that was designed to take down this object in Michigan, it missed. That means we just sent a missile flying off into Michigan. And the initial reports for like a day were they didn't know where it was. Then they came out and they said, well, it's fine. It just landed somewhere in Lake Huron. So the Biden administration was so afraid to shoot down a massive balloon that was spying on us from China, even though, as you well know, if you have ever flown over the United States, there are tons of places you could shoot down a spy balloon and it wouldn't come anywhere near another human. Yet they missed this other thing that they tried to shoot down the first time that they tried in Michigan, and a missile just randomly went into Lake Huron. Can you imagine if you're just a random dude and you're out in Michigan and you're like, man, I swear a missile just hit Lake Huron? All of your buddies would be like, it's winter and you've been drinking way too much, bud. You're like, no, man, I'm telling you, this huge missile just slammed right into Lake Huron. I think we're under attack from China. Maybe the Russians are here. It's Red Dawn. Everybody would have said, dude, it's northern Michigan. It's the winter. You've been drinking too much. There's no way a missile just hit Lake Huron. Oh, it did, because we missed. So the argument that it wasn't safe to shoot it down when you have later decided to shoot down something smaller and actually missed doesn't hold a lot of water to me. Just FYI. But if we knew for a week that this Chinese spy balloon was on the way here, why in the world didn't we shoot it down? Senator Josh Hawley tweeted last night a really interesting response when I shared the story that you just heard. Senator Hawley said he didn't shoot it down over Alaska because the military and intelligence agencies didn't tell him about it until it had left Alaska. Let that sink in. Tells you who really runs this country. That's a blockbuster idea. And it's one that I've hinted on about on this program. How many people actually trust Joe Biden in this administration? Remember how every time you opened up the New York Times, the whole time that Donald Trump was in office, or the Washington Post, there'd be some anonymous source saying, oh, we don't trust Trump, so we don't tell him X or Y or Z. And we talked about that as being a part of the deep state. Because really, whether you trust the president or not shouldn't impact whether you do your job. Because your job is to serve the commander-in-chief. He is the express head of the United States government. And so just because you think he's not doing a good job doesn't mean that you have the authority to choose not to give him the information that allows him to do the job. But how much is going on right now inside of the United States government? They didn't trust Trump. How much right now is going on inside the United States government where people say Biden has dementia? We're just not even going to tell him about this stuff. Because that's scarier to me. We have a Chinese foreign aircraft penetrating our airspace. My immediate response is we shoot the damn thing down. But what if they just didn't tell Joe Biden for several days that this was even here? because they didn't trust his ability to make a decent decision. What if these agencies, these spy groups, are actually doing whatever they want without American oversight from our commander-in-chief? You want to talk about real threats to democracy? Remember, Milley said, General Milley, that if Trump wanted to do anything to China, he would call China first. Well, excuse me, that's treason. If the President of the United States orders you to do something to a foreign adversary, and the first thing you think to do is pick up the phone and call the foreign adversary and let him know what might happen, you are directly subverting your responsibility to act on the guidance of the commander-in-chief. But what if internally, Joe Biden is seen right now as so uniquely incompetent that they aren't even telling him major issues of national security because they don't believe he can analyze them and make a rational decision on behalf of the country? That's democracy dying in darkness, Washington Post. That's news that's fit to print the New York Times. What if our national security apparatus is so convinced that Biden is incompetent that they aren't even giving him information that is integral to being able to be the President of the United States? That seems like a big story. That seems, in fact, like a monstrous story. That seems, in fact, like the kind of story that should be leading every news outlet in the country, because it would suggest that Joe Biden is not actually running the country. So who is? And what do they want? And who are they having to answer to? Who is sending the orders in the United States right now? That's a big question that all of us should be asking in the wake of this Chinese spy balloon debacle and the fact that we're firing missiles off into Lake Huron that we can't even manage to track. That, to me, seems like a really big deal. Got a great caller out there who wants to talk about the missile and the fact that we managed to miss in Michigan trying to shoot down this object, and then it went into the water of the lake up there. And it's really kind of crazy to think about. Terrence, Panama City, Florida, you are a former commander of the 170th Fighter Squadron. What did you think about the miss and the missile going into Lake Huron up there?
Well, there's a thing called PK, potential kill, and each missile has a potential kill, and the missile is just like any other machine. Not every one of them is going to work. That's why you come in with multiple missiles on. I understand the F-16 was out of the squadron at Madison. I used to be in that squadron as well. And I'm sure they had 4 Sidewinders on and 4 AMRAAMs on board. So they were going to be able to complete the mission. So that's not that unusual. Now, when the missile comes off, if it doesn't find its target, it says to itself, hey, I've gone stupid. And what it will do is it will self-detonate so the enemy can't get our missiles and reverse engineer them.
But does that tie into my question for you? When the Biden administration says it's not safe to shoot down a Chinese spy balloon because of what might happen, and then we try to shoot down this other object in Michigan, but it ends up that we miss, and this missile goes off out of the miss. Like, it does call into question whether safety was the reason we didn't shoot down the Chinese spy balloon, right?
No, that they should have been shooting it down right away. Of course, I would not have used a Sidewinder on it myself because it also has what's called a proximity fuse, and when it gets close to the target, and if it thinks it's going to miss, it launches it explodes the proximity fuse, and it's just like, a carpenter has those rulers that they fold up, and it folds out like that, and it'll try to hit the target anyway. So they were, whoever made that decision, they were going to destroy that gondola that was underneath the balloon with a Sidewinder. They could have started shooting down the balloon with their cannon, and they said that the gun door, they haven't tested the gun door above 50,000 feet. Excuse me, this could be a possible war. Who cares about the gun door? Hell with the gun door. Take the gun door off. They had 3 days to go out and test this damn gun above 50,000 feet before they decided to shoot it down. They should have went up there with the gun door off and sawed that thing in half and let that thing drift down. The balloon, punctured the balloon and let the balloon drift down. That's what they should have done. But
thank you for the call. I think there's a lot of people out there nodding along. I wish we had you making decisions about how to shoot down the Chinese spy balloon instead of Joe Biden. Heck, I wish we had almost anybody making decisions instead of Joe Biden, and that's what I'm afraid of. I think a lot of people have made that decision that they don't want for Joe Biden to be trusted as the commander-in-chief to make decisions. That's why they're hiding information from him.